Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. I wanted to make a quick video showing how to very easily make your first texture mod for the DS2 LightingEngine mod, which is actually the mod that's handling the texture overriding system that I use to make my texture mod, which I'll link the videos that I have showing off my texture mod. And I did a video previously that showed a little bit of that, but I wanted to make a very, its own video very quickly. So you can open up your Dark Souls 2 game folder here. This is assuming you've already installed the lighting engine mod. I'll link it in the description. There's really good instructions on there of how to install it. You basically just drop it in your game folder and then choose overwrite, and then you're good to go. So let's assume you've done that. And then there's two main ways to edit textures or grab the textures that you want. And so this is the DS2 Lighting Engine user settings.ini that will now be in your folder. You'll see texture cache mode. So texture cache mode has three different settings currently. Texture cache mode 1 is dump, which equals where basically what's being rendered, it will dump those textures. So you can run through the game world as you're running around, and it will dump those textures into, as you can see right here, there's the text dump folder, and that's where all those textures will show up. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Texture cache mode number 2 is override, where basically it's going to use new textures that are found in text override. So that's basically after you've already finished upscaling your textures or modifying them in whatever way you want, converting them back to DDS, which I'll also show you how I do that, but you can do that in 10,000 different ways. And then texture cache mode number 3 is actually very awesome. And I'll show you that in game as well. That's actually called the editor mode. And so when you put this to 3, it allows you to go inside the game and you can modify the settings or the textures while you're in game. So it's fantastic. So right now we're on dump mode, which is 1. Let's launch Dark Souls 2. I'm going to show you how you can also change your texture cache setting in game. I definitely can see a lot of people preferring to do that way versus messing with INI files. And I don't blame people at all for that. So basically you load in the game and then you push F1, and that's going to pull up the user interface for the lighting mod here. And under user settings at the top, you will see this is where your texture cache mode setting is. So instead of doing the INI, you can actually go here and basically select dump, override, or editor, which does exactly what I was talking about earlier with the INI text file. Same thing, it's just a visual version of that. And so you change it to whatever you want, and you hit save, and then reboot the game. And then it basically will be active. So right now we have dump active. Push F1 to close that again. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to load in to my character, and we're going to start dumping textures that presumably, let's say these are the textures that you want to grab and you want to upscale. So let's hit continue. You see I have a lot of different characters. Let's click on Buldingar, which is a name I used from a World of Warcraft character and a character I've brought forward to every game I've essentially played. So here we are. We're in the Dragon Shrine, and it is currently dumping every texture that is hitting the renderer. But while the game is running, let's open up our game folder and click into our dump, and you can now see a bunch of textures that have popped in. While we've been running around, it has basically just dumped 1,161 textures. A lot of these, as you'll see right here, is a good thing to point out. These are the baked lighting maps with how the old lighting system worked. You do not want to upscale these. If you upscale them, you create rainbow effects that will show up in game. So I had to manually go back and delete those. So I'll just save you a lot of time. Anything that looks like this, do not upscale it and delete that. Well, if you end up upscaling it and then go back and delete it. Load up F2 for the texture override module. You'll hit capture, and what it's going to do is basically capture whatever's being rendered, and you can then, I use the keyboard to select basically things that I want to edit the textures for, and you can tell it selects it in bright red. So let's say we wanted to upscale this wall right here. So we have now selected it, and it shows you the two different textures that it uses, which it uses an albedo texture and then the normal map. And it gives you the fingerprint ID, so it gives you the full file name. But what we want to do, because we want to create an override, so we're going to hit create override. We leave the name blank, but this is where you could create a friendly name. But for my purposes, I don't do the friendly naming, where it can basically be something that is more understood than H5649818, you know, etc. So basically I hit that. You can then see that is overridden updates, and that means that it has made those files. Let's go to our texture override folder, and now it shows the texture that we are currently looking at in game. So what I do is very quickly, I right click on them after selecting, I convert to PNG, it will pop out the PNG files. I open up my photo AI and close that other texture that I was working on. And let's go back to our texture override folder. We select the two PNGs. We're going to do a nifty 4x upscale. And let's just make sure that it actually does it. And as you can tell, it looks so much better. In Photo AI, you quickly just apply the settings to both of them. And so it's going to do that on the normal map as well. And I have it once again overwrite in the same exact folder. So it's going to process those real quick and then save them. And as it's doing that, it's going to overwrite these two PNGs. It takes a little bit coming from 1K to 4K. Okay, it saved the first one. Oh man, it went from 2.2 megabytes up to 41. Yikes. Of course, when we convert back to DDS, like we're going to do right now, so as you'll see here, we have the two original DDS files. We have the two files that have been converted to PNG and now upscaled. And we go back to our Mad Hack Tools context menu, convert to DDS, compress BC7 with bitmaps. Of course, if you're working on a texture that doesn't need a bitmap, like if it's like a really tiny item icon kind of thing, then you don't have to worry about that. But for like obviously landscape textures, wall textures, floor textures, etc. So we're going to convert back to DDS, which will cut down on the file size quite a bit, but it will probably land around 20 megabytes. So still a big increase. So once again, it's now doing the second process up here. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And you can tell it has now updated the DDS files that are in the texture override. And so it's now current. And because of that, with the game running the entire time, we can now select off of it. And you can see that it is much higher resolution now. It's literally that easy. You've now started on your texture mod, and now you can go through as many textures as you want. Usually what I do at this point, of course, is delete the original PNGs, and then this PNG, or this DDS file, wherever this texture is in the game. But those are basically the two different ways. For bulk work, it makes a lot more sense to use the dumping feature. You can also convert older texture mods that were used with IGP11. You can convert them, basically the fingerprint. This is not going to be a tutorial for that, as I have not actually done that yet, but that is possible. So you don't have to like author an entirely new texture mod. But this was just a quick showcase for dumping and altering those textures, or basically doing it in-game with the editor function as such. And it's just a really quick way to modify textures and see the results in-game within like 2 minutes. It's frankly fantastic. It's changed my workflow, and that's actually how I've been updating my texture mod, which 0.5 came out today. There's a torrent. There's 4 parts on Nexus Mods if you want to download it that way. But yeah, so this has been from SoftServe. hopefully this has been helpful. If you have any questions or if I left something out, which I likely did, leave a comment. We can talk about it. I'll also link the DS2 Lighting Engine Discord, because that's where we all hang out and share notes and tips and tricks. And we're just hanging out, and we're just being really, everyone's super helpful. If you have any questions. So, all right, see you later. See you next time. Be nice, be kind, be empathetic, and I hope you have a fantastic day.